left off on now shrines or places to make a pilgrimage to. Ecclesial approbation is helpful. It really is helpful. Um, there has often been a vetting process, a discernment process, and that we, as laity, may not always have access to various and sundry pieces of information, and that we can really lean into. Tied to the ordinary's approval or encouragement of it would be indulgences, and that is those are graces dispensed from the treasury of faith, and it is by the ordinary authority that occurs. So we also know that God, of course, is the author of all graces. So, but the bishop has been given custody for that purpose. So, do we have any thoughts on that? We can move into.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say that that approbation, is kind of a fancy word for approval. Just want to make sure that people know that approbation, because it sounds kind of like probation, right? Now, it's approbation is the approval that certain sites are given, and it is important for us to have confidence in the places that we are going to, because Satan is a master counterfeiter, right? And the human person is susceptible to a lie. And the church gives us these places that we don't have to worry about. We can go to them with confidence. And there are a number of such places. Like you said, I don't know, how many did you say? 170 in America alone?
121, yes, 121 according to this book.
Right.
I
mean, that's a great mercy.
And shrines. It's from the USCC, United States Catholic Congress. When was it published? 1994. This is 1994.
So a couple of them won't be in there. So there are a couple others that have been named. Like I know that there's a new shrine that was named in Alexandria, Virginia. There's certainly one in Wisconsin. I don't think well, I guess maybe La Crosse would be in there. I don't know. So I mean, there could be more. Right.
So we'll have two books,
right,
to kind of consider here.
Right. But it's just nice to know, like you can go to these places with confidence. You don't have to wonder whether or not they're authentic places that are set aside for holy things. You can go there with confidence.
That's correct. So there are world-renowned places, Fatima, Lourdes, and Guadalupe. So remember a few shows back, we said that there would be miracles, apparitions, healings, that sort of thing. So with Fatima and Guadalupe, there were certainly the miracles, the spinning of the sun, the drenched clothes from the rain were immediately dry. And of course, we have the tilma that should have deteriorated 400, 500, 600 years ago.
Right.
And it still isn't. With Lourdes, we have the miracle of healings, the waters. So, so there are different, those are your major pilgrimage sites, but each of them tend to have a particular flavor to them.
Right.
Holy doors. So there's a double door that's hung in the center of the iconostasis.
Right.
And it opens only for a bishop, a priest, or the deacon during the most solemn part of the celebration of the Divine Liturgy. So we're taking that definition here from the Catholic Encyclopedia. Stravinskas was the general editor of that. Iconostasis, properly speaking, is any support for an icon, Generally, the screen covered with icons separates the rest of the church in the east, the rest of the church, and that's an idea from the Eastern Church. So this will be the first time. So 2025 will be the first time in 25 years that the Holy Door has been opened. It was last opened in 2000 by John Paul II. And at that time, he wrote of the Holy Door in Incarnatius Mysterium, his bull of indiction of the Great Jubilee, explaining how it evokes the passage from sin to grace, which every Christian is called to accomplish. Jesus said, I am the door, John 10:7, in order to make it clear that no one can come to the Father except through him. Jesus is the only way to the Father. This designation, which Jesus applies to himself, testifies to the fact that he alone is the Savior sent by the Father. There is only one way that opens wide the entrance into the life of communion with God. This is Jesus, the one and absolute way to salvation. To him alone can the words of the psalmist be applied in full truth. This is the door of the Lord where the just may enter, and that'd be Psalm 118:20. John Paul II adds that it is the responsibility of every believer to cross the threshold of this door. Why? To pass through that door means to confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. It is to strengthen faith in him in order to live the new life which he has given us. It is a decision which presumes freedom to choose and also the courage to leave something behind, in the knowledge that what is gained is divine life. Matthew 13:44-46. He also acknowledged that this was the spirit he was going to have, as he, the Holy Father, was to be the first to pass through the holy door. Through the holy door, Christ will lead us more deeply into the church, his body, and his bride.
So that's 2000. What was that? Incarnatus, what? Dominus?
Incarnatius Mysterium,
Oh, Mysterium.
and that was
Right, the mystery of the incarnation. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's right before the Jubilee year, right? Crossing the
Yes, yes.
Yeah, there's so much clarity in that, particularly at this time when, unfortunately, we have really had the waters muddied.
Yes, yes,
I mean,
yes. And
that element of seeing, because and how crazy, right? I mean, what an unusual situation, because there is going to be a holy door again in this Jubilee year. And John Paul is very, very clear about the death into life, but also through the door, which is Christ. And the church has so many of those anthropomorphic symbols within the church, right? So many different places where we see that. The candle for the Easter Vigil, right, is an actual representation of Christ himself. The altar is actually an anthropomorphic representation of Christ himself. This holy door is actually an anthropomorphic representation of Christ. All of these different physical symbols attest to a different element of his divine humanity, right? That he is the light of the world, that he is the sacrifice and the one who makes the sacrifice, right? I mean, he is the high priest. And this door, that there is no other way to cross over from death to life than through him. I think it's so interesting because I've heard a couple of homilies recently where the metaphor just limps. Like, the priest was talking about, and for the life of me, he was talking about Jaws the other day and throwing dynamite into Jaws's mouth to destroy him. And that's as far as the metaphor got for me, because I have no idea what he was trying to connect that to, right? But these beautiful metaphoric images that the church has presented to us, that there can be no question as to what they mean, right? I mean, to the point even that the Protestants can't get over the difference between metaphor and reality when it comes to the difference between a gate, a door, a candle, an altar, and the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. Right? The metaphors are so strong and so sure that when it passes from metaphor to reality, they can't make the leap there, right? So, we have to, what we were talking about before about this element of the human person being hylomorphic, right? That we are both body, soul, and body. The church has always recognized that, and it's been ever so gracious in dispensing both the beauty and the exterior realities of the church that are so beneficial to the interior life of the soul. That I don't know. It just seems like maybe while the time that we were growing up, it just seems like there was a little bit of a stinginess with that.
Yep.
That there was some kind of a lie told that if Christ was poor, then the only way that we could know Christ was if we were all dressed in sackcloth and ashes, which kind of defeats the point, right? A little bit, because we never put on sackcloth and ashes for our sinfulness.
No. And we certainly don't put sackcloth and ashes when we have some sort of dignitary, or you know, a friend we haven't seen in forever, and they're finally in your home. Um,
Yeah.
no, we're not going to be looking like we just came out of the garden.
Right, yes. Yeah, no, you don't do. But I mean, it is interesting, right? That we have this odd disconnect that is going on. And the
is.
only way that we're really going to find our way out of it is an authentic restoration of good metaphor and legitimate beauty, right? Those are going to be two very helpful things for us to be able to move past this dysphoria that we're all kind of suffering from. I think everybody knows that we want something more, but we don't know how we're supposed to get there, which is why the pilgrimage does become a very concrete tool for the pilgrim to enter into a radical, right? And radical, I don't mean like, radicalized. I mean an authentic, earthy feel of what it means to move the self from death to life, right? To really seek out conversion, as opposed to it just being kind of an interior disposition. The body will do better. It's St. Thomas Aquinas all over, right? Grace builds on nature. When a body walks itself from the home to a church, something changes in the interior disposition of the person. When a person gets up in the morning and puts on a beautiful dress instead of a gross pair of, sweatpants and a t-shirt, something changes in the interior disposition of the person. And not only the interior disposition, but the way that other people see you, right? So anyway, I guess that's thought of the pilgrimage being so helpful in that regard, right? To concretizing, like you can hang something on it. I think it's one of the reasons why that sacramental life is so important in Catholic reality. I remember I was at a conference a number of years ago and I think she was actually a Baptist preacher, but she said, when Satan reminds you of your past, you tell him his future. But I thought, it's hard when he reminds you of your past if you don't have any concrete outward reality of having been forgiven, right? So a baptism is fundamentally important. You can pick the date up. You know exactly when you were baptized. Confession is so important because you physically hear the words, "I absolve you from your sins," right? Those are real things that when life gets kind of challenging or when Satan tries to become very, very manipulative, you have some physical realness that you can hang your condemnation of him on.
That's right. All right, friends. We'll pick up here in the next episode. Till then, Fide Sriracha.